What's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. Hope you're all doing well. Make sure the music's playing. Everything's looking good. All right, we're off to a good start. We're all doing great. Hope you're all having a fantastic weekend. I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website, techinterview.guide, and we have passed our 1-year anniversary as a stream. We collectively as a community, because I wouldn't be here if all of you weren't here. So thank you for being part of our community. Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to all the folks that have been around for the past year. There's been a lot of folks sort of come and gone, but I appreciate everybody that drops by and says hi to everybody. No real theme for tonight, or for today, rather, but probably going to be a relatively short stream. I'm going to try to stream for only about an hour and a half. We got some family plans for the day, got other chores and stuff to take care of. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So I might dive in on some Discord questions. We got our youngest dropping by to say hi to everybody.
Hello.
Got a lot of folks dropping by the Discord server, so here's a link over to Discord. I'll drop this in the YouTube description below if you're watching these episodes on YouTube later on. Appreciate it. Please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Let's see what else is going on. Yeah, I think we'll just dip into some anonymous questions just to kind of kick things off. But as always, you're welcome to just drop questions in chat as we go. If you've got things that you want to ask about interview preparation, career preparation, anything along those lines, feel free to drop that in as we go. All right, well, let's dive in. Let's go find an anonymous question here. This one kind of touches on a theme that we talk about quite a lot here. So I'm going to start a clip and then I'll paste this in and we'll go. We had an anonymous question from Discord that says, how do I answer the interview question, tell me about yourself if I'm still a student? The whole idea behind answering a question like, tell me about yourself, is really, why should I hire you? And even when you're a student, you still can provide some amount of value to the company. And so a lot of answering that question comes down to, what is the perceived value that you think you could bring to that company? It's like, yeah, you're still a student, you're still learning things, but that doesn't mean that you have no inherent value to bring to that company. And so you really need to figure out, like, what is it that you do bring to the company? You bring energy, you bring kind of a renewed perspective on things. Sometimes, you know, developers in an organization, they work on something for a really long time and they get kind of what we call tunnel vision, where it's like, you know, this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we're always going to keep doing it, where, you know, you get some fresh people coming in who have learned theory and they've learned some practical aspects of, you know, here's how you could do something. They're going to come in with an imagination over, is this possible? How about this? Could we try this or that? And for some developers that have been at companies for a long time, you have to be patient with them, first of all, because on both sides. If the developers that have been around a while, they're going to be like, oh, we got to answer these questions again. It's like, no, we can't do it this way because of this. We can't do it that way because of that. But I think that as a senior developer or as an architect or as any other level, basically other than the brand new fresh eyeballs coming in, I think we really need to take a good look at, could we try it that way? What if we tried it that way? Like, what would we have to change? Why do we have to do things the way that we've always done them? And so I think part of the value that you bring as a student, whether you're coming in as an intern or you're coming in as a fresh grad, really falls into that category of, how do I provide value to a company with that fresh perspective? What does that look like? What kinds of ideas can I bring? What sorts of, not radical change, but like, what could I suggest that might help make things better or different around here versus the way that they've always done them? So that would be where I would probably start with that conversation, is just say, hey, I'm new, but, you know, I'm going to bring a lot of ideas. I'm going to bring a lot of energy. I'm willing to do the kinds of work and the kinds of things that, you know, maybe others on the team are tired of doing. Like, I need that experience too, so give me some of that work. There's a lot of opportunity as a student and as a new grad to come in and really impact a team in a lot of positive ways. And for me, the number one thing that I was always excited about bringing entry-level devs on the team was just their energy and just, all right, maybe I've been doing this a while and maybe I'm a little bit tired and so on. But if you can show me how excited you are about doing something, sometimes that'll kind of reinvigorate me a little bit. So there are a handful of things that you can do to answer that question, but it really comes down to how to see the value that you bring to the company as a new student and coming in with that perspective. All right, let me go mark that question as being done. I'm gonna have to start stocking up some of my other my anonymous questions here. I haven't been keeping up on that, so I will go find more questions to populate in there. Let me go change that. Answered on stream 2022-07 10. Daddy Wazzy, good to see you. Happy Sunday to you as well. Hope you're doing well. What's going on with your weekend? What have you been up to this weekend? Hopefully staying cool wherever you are. It's 100 degrees in the Denver area the last couple of days, so we're all bunkering down in the basement with the AC cranked, so all the nice cold air drops into the basement. Now it's so cold down here I've got to wear a sweater, but it's pretty nice down here in the basement for sure. I have a question. Who is the boy in the background making silly faces? There's a boy in my background making silly faces. This is my youngest. We call him 11 because that's his age. Yeah, home intruder. Oh no. Yeah, he's my son. He's one of my two kids. Yep, and he's enjoying JavaScript and math and Python, doing Ruby, doing some Scratch. What else are you working on these days? He's counting how many times I say He's gonna run out of fingers if he's counting how many times I say
And that one counts.
That one counts too? Oh, okay. I'm in big trouble now. Robo Oso, good to see you in chat as well. Yeah, he's doing all that at 11. He's had a pretty good interest in coding. We actually started stop counting. There's an organization that started in Ireland called Coder Dojo, and they've got kind of branches all over the world now. The last I checked, they had about 5,000 Coder Dojos, where it's just volunteers from the tech industry teaching kids how to code and getting them interested in the idea of technology and STEM and really sparking their creativity on things. And we heard of a group that had been started in the Denver region, and so we took both of our kids to that, and they both really latched on to just the idea of like, what can we do with these computers? And it was kind of eye-opening in some ways. In other ways, it was also a bad thing as well, because it sparked a little bit of technology addiction in the family, where they just always want to be on a screen and they don't want to go outside. And we've tried going to a water park lately, and this one's like, I'm bored, I want to go home, play my video games. So we do have to be a little bit careful about screen time, but over the summer, they've both really gotten into working on coding and things like that. And so I've tried encouraging them, like, hey, if you're going to be on the computer, less YouTube, less, just silly YouTube watching, although there's time and space for that too. But get into something that's going to enrich your brain a little bit. And so they've both been getting into coding. My oldest is really getting into Python, really, really loving Python. This one's been tinkering with JavaScript and Ruby, and getting into Scratch and doing all kinds of like math plots. And what's that equation called with the 3 times 3 plus 1? It's a 3x plus 1 equation that if you can take any number, and if it's odd, you multiply by 3 and add 1, and you keep doing that as long as it's odd, and whenever it's even, it divides by 2. All numbers eventually get down to 1, except for negatives and 0. So it's kind of interesting. And then he figured out how in Scratch to actually plot this math line, and just seeing like how some numbers go on for like a really long time and some numbers end really quickly in that sequence and things like that. So he's really digging on math and science and stuff as well. Big interest in space and like just looking at stars and constellations and stuff like that. So we'll have to find some way of like tying those things in together. Like maybe I'll get him to. So one thing that I did with some students in the past was actually hook up a bunch of motors to a telescope to actually move a telescope to point at a constellation or point at something in the sky. And maybe I'll get this one to tinker with some of that or something. I don't know. We'll see. I got my dog here to visit me too. Hello, dog. Hey, what are you doing? Daddy Wisey says, wish I had that option as a kid. Yeah, me too. I mean, my dad came home with a Commodore 64 in August of '82, and I was hooked pretty much instantly. So when I wasn't out playing hockey, I was at home on the Commodore 64, teaching myself BASIC and hacking my games and all kind of stuff. Oh, now you want to jump up and say hi to me, do you? Come on. Come on. All right. This is Riker. Riker wants to say hi to everybody. Hi. Hi. It's a doggo. You had an Amiga. That was sweet. I really liked my Commodore 64. It was a lot of fun, and I knew a guy when I was in high school. I knew a guy with an Amiga, and he would often try to swap video games, and sometimes, I mean, my games would work on his machine, but his Amiga games wouldn't work on mine, so interesting. Hey, fool, good to see you in chat as well. The Stream Bomber is back, yes. Stream Bomber loves to hang out and cover up my web sign. There we go. Alright. Cool deal. Well, hope everybody's doing well. I was just going to grab some questions out of the Discord and try to finish up some of the anonymous questions I've been collecting for a while. There are a handful in there, and then I need to go like repopulate that channel with other questions. I actually had a really interesting one come in on one of the YouTube videos recently that was asking, when I write a cover letter, if I get a referral from someone at the company, should I put the phone number of the person who gave me the referral in the cover letter? And I answered on YouTube and said, well, you can. There's nothing wrong with that, but if they're already an employee at the company, it's not really necessary to, because they'll be able to track down who it is. If it's a really common name, then, you know, like if you've got a whole bunch of people with the same, you know, first name and last name, then yeah, you could probably give some sort of contact information or a little more context into like which of those people gave you the referral, just to make it a little bit easier for them to figure out like who gave you the referral so that they can track that sort of stuff. But it's not really necessary to put too much context in there. So, you know, if someone was writing a cover letter to say, hi, I'm so-and-so and I'm applying for this position, I was referred by Ian, who's been at your company for X amount of time. So as you're doing your research and you get to know these people, like you can put some of that context in the letter. So if there were multiple people there named Ian and they say, Ian's been at your company for several years, they're like, oh, that's this Ian versus, you know, this other Ian that we just hired. Things like that. I was on the Atari ST. Saw some comments on all computers in chat. Yeah, so we were talking about how we got the kids into a local kind of coding group called Coder Dojo, and we shut it down just before the pandemic hit. It was really hard to find a combination of, at least in the Denver area, it was really hard to find a location that wasn't going to charge us money, because as Coder Dojo, we weren't allowed to charge people money to come to the dojo. It had to be open and free for the community to come. But we also didn't have like corporate sponsorship to pay for the space to actually have like a group of 20 or 30 kids running around and being on computers and playing with Internet of Things and be able to lug equipment in and out and stuff like that. That didn't want to charge us money for the space. Or we would find places that were happy to donate the space, but it wasn't close to public transit, and so underprivileged families weren't able to attend, and we wanted to be kind of open and available for everybody to come to. And we had a lot of families come that they didn't have a computer at home. They just didn't, you know, they didn't have access to the technology. And so we got to a point where companies were donating laptops to us, and we would let the kids earn the laptops. It's like, all right, you get to keep this now. You know, you got beyond a certain point in the studies and, you know, you worked on a couple of little projects, so you can just keep that laptop now. And they're like, what? And then when we shut the whole thing down, we donated all the laptops and all the equipment and whatever to another group that was helping people that needed computers to learn skills to like get better jobs and things like that. But we shut that down like November of 2019, and then the pandemic hit like a couple of months later, so we would have shut down either way. But it was a really cool group to be a part of, and Coder Dojos all over the world. So if you're interested in getting involved in mentoring and helping like kids, you know, they typically, they say they cater from 8 to 18. Our average age was more like 10 to 14 kind of age range. If you're interested in working with kids and want to get them into STEM and teaching them about programming and stuff, I encourage you have a look at Coder Dojo. They were kind of like acquired / merged with the Raspberry Pi Foundation back in, I think, late 2018. And so most of 2019, they were like working through that merger and trying to figure out how to merge all the content together, because Raspberry Pi Foundation also had a bunch of free like educational material and stuff like that. And so they merged them all together. So if you go to coderdojo.com, you'll see a lot of Raspberry Pi Foundation branding and stuff on there too. But there's lots and lots of material for getting into like Internet of Things. And, you know, obviously the emphasis now is more on Raspberry Pi, but back then it was a lot of Arduino and stuff like that. But they still cater to both. So there's a lot of opportunity to get involved there and help people out. And it was really interesting. And it wasn't meant to be like a lecture style thing where you get up and you teach a whole classroom of kids. A lot of parents that would bring the kids there thought that that's what it was. And so we had to kind of reset their expectations and say, well, no, it's meant to like spark your kids' creativity about what do you want to do? Let's help you figure out how to go do that thing. And so it was really sparking that way of wanting to figure things out. Like, how do I break this problem down? Now, how do I go figure out how to solve each of those little pieces of the problem and put all that together as a whole solution, which is a lot of what we do as developers and engineers and things like that. So it was really neat to kind of see how students really latched onto that and really got working in a lot of that. It was really neat. We would occasionally have people come in and say like, hey, here's this Microsoft Kinect and this camera, and here's how the sensors work. And we would like kind of break things down a little bit, and that was fun. And then we were showing them how you could use like Raspberry Pi hardware to control Minecraft. And then a whole group, I think called Piper, they came out with a whole kit that you could buy where the kids actually figured out, okay, well, here's the Raspberry Pi, and boom, you're in Minecraft. But you've got to like, there was this whole storyline of you got to connect these wires to make this robot work. And so as you're connecting wires, and okay, now push the button. And when you push the button, you'd start moving in Minecraft. And it's like, okay, well, if you want to turn, then we've got to hook up another button so the robot can turn and like do all these automated tasks and things like that. It was really neat to get kids into the idea of thinking of like how a keyboard works with the switches inside and how it makes that physical connection and stuff like that. So it was really interesting how this Piper group got together and they started building out this material. Their kits were a little expensive, but you're paying for the storyline and all the development work that went into building out the Minecraft stories and stuff like that. It was pretty neat. So we bought one of them. It's sitting on a shelf over here that, you know, both of our kids have worked all the way through it. And so, but we've still got like lots of Arduino kits and stuff like that. So my youngest here was also tinkering with some, was it Arduino that you were playing with? Or it was just basic circuits, I think, right? It was just like hook up a battery and like little buttons and make LEDs light up and stuff like that. So having all kinds of fun with that sort of thing. You like the idea of earning a laptop. It was really important to us to make sure that people that were coming from underprivileged families had the opportunity to earn something like that. So yeah, it made us feel pretty good that we had the opportunity to do that. And then the one person who was kind of running our Coder Dojo sponsored like buying a whole bunch of laptops, and that year, that was 2018, I believe it was 2018, for Black Friday, found a deal at Dell to go buy these like blue Dell laptops. And they weren't fantastic laptops, but they would get the job done for scratch and just basic command line stuff and installing Linux and stuff like that. And they tried to buy a whole bunch of them. Like they tried to buy dozens of these laptops on this Black Friday sale. And Dell kept blocking the credit card. So they reached out and they're like, hey, Ian, can you try and buy some of these and I'll pay you back? And so I tried buying a bunch and they blocked me too. And so they had to call Dell and say, look, like we're running this organization. We're trying to buy these for kids. Like, can you help us out? Well, by the time Dell contacted them back, the Black Friday sale was over, and they ended up paying a whole lot more for these laptops. But at the end of it, we donated them all at the end of it. So, and yeah, it was interesting. I ended up picking up a few of them, so we've got some of them here at home as well. And this one's been tinkering on it a little bit as well. So they don't need to see it if you're bringing it over. They don't need to see it. I was just mentioning it to them. So. Cool. All right. Well, let's keep going through some anonymous questions. If other things come up, if other questions come up while I'm going through any of this stuff, by all means, drop questions in chat. I've also got this anonymous way that you can ask questions as well. You can send a whisper over the bot and it'll show up in chat as an anonymous question. I want people to feel safe about asking questions. You can also DM me on all the social platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. I try to be Ian Douglas 736 everywhere. So you can follow me on those places. Connect with me on LinkedIn, though. Don't just follow me on LinkedIn. And you can send me direct messages. I'll try to answer your anonymous question wherever you ask, but I may also bring the questions into our anonymous questions channel on Discord, just so other people can see those questions and also see when I answer them on the stream as well, because I like to bring up that kind of collective knowledge. I think it's important to kind of share those questions, because if you've got a question, other people probably have that same question. HFW, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a minute. Had to hop off Twitch for a bit to focus on studying. Cool. Well, it's good to see you back. Things are going great. We raised our last diversity in tech fundraiser. We raised $3,500, and we give that to a group in San Francisco at the end of June, and we reset everything. So now we started back at zero on June 24th. We're up to $66.39 already. We're going to basically raise money through the end of the year, and then we're going to find another organization to donate that to. We're probably going to do another kind of giveaway around October, where it's like the month-long kind of giveaway. But we've got kind of a big milestone coming up. We are close to 1,000 followers, and so we're trying to think of what kind of giveaway can we do for 1,000 followers. So we've got a handful of ideas that we've been kind of tinkering with and toying with. So let me switch over to that screen real quick. Oops, wrong button. Let's go over to this screen. So we're thinking about maybe one of these small like hexagon packs or something like that, or the small triangle pack or mini triangle starter kit or something like that, where you can just get a couple of these like Internet of Things lights. Govey is another brand that I've been really liking lately. Govey lights. They've got a lot of them too. They've got like these floor lamps and things like that that you can control, and they're controllable. A lot of them are controllable through Wi-Fi, through an API, and some of them are controllable through Bluetooth. And so I'm thinking like something in the like $50 to $100 range for that $1,000 or 1,000 follower giveaway. So I'm trying to think of like something in that sort of realm that would be controllable through your phone or something like that. So if you're a streamer, if you just want some fun lights or something like that. So that was one idea. Another idea that someone had was mechanical keyboard. I get like a mechanical keyboard kit or something like that for someone to build a mechanical keyboard. So I'm going through a couple of options right now around some of that, and we might figure out like what do we do if the person's international, so I don't have to pay shipping. I might just give them like the equivalent dollar amount as a like Visa gift card or something like that. Just to avoid paying shipping. But if you're domestic and it's something I can order on Amazon and ship it for free, then I'll do that. But give the winner the choice of which of these prizes do you want, or which of these things do you want, something like that. So yeah, I'm still looking for some other ideas. So if you've got ideas of something in the $50 to $100 range that you think would make a good giveaway gift, feel free to contact me or drop things in chat. Happy to take ideas around that. And then that's just going to be like a one-time giveaway thing for when we hit 1,000 followers. And aside from that, I've been working on the new version of the email series. So I've been breaking the current email newsletter into 4 different newsletters, and one of them is ready to go. So the behavior one's all ready to go with the new system. The general one is just general tips, and that one's going to be more like just how do you think about interviewing in general. It's got just a lot of general tips, like how do you get ready for a remote interview, You know, what kinds of things should you study and things like that. So I've got that. And then I've got a whole list on just preparation stuff. And that's everything from the resumes, cover letters, company research, like deep dive on company research and stuff like that. And then and then getting into like how to study, how to practice leak code, how many leak code things should you do, and stuff like that. So that's the preparation list. And then the technical questions list, I've gone through and I've rewritten a bunch of those and I've added additional content on that one. That one's almost halfway finished for the technical one. So I've got one mailing list finished. The technical one's about half finished. The general and the preparation ones are both about a third halfway finished. And the behavior series has about 25 questions in it, and the others are going to have like 30 to 40, 20 days worth of content. The other are going to be 30 to 40 days worth of content. And so if you go to the daily email series link that I would typically post in chat, if you add this parameter of beta equals yes, I'll drop this in chat over here if anybody's curious. I'm curious what you all think of the user experience of signing up. So when you put in your email address, it'll send you an email to confirm, and when you click on the link there, it's going to bring you back to the website where it's going to look something like this. Where it's going to come in, it's going to populate your email address, as well as like which newsletter you wanted to subscribe to, when you want to start getting the messages, but also a pace of how frequently do you want the messages. Do you want them every day? Do you want them every 2 days, every 7 days? You're going to get to choose. And so I'm curious what people think about the user experience overall. And then there's a big save button at the bottom. I may make the save button kind of locked at the bottom because there is quite a bit of scrolling on the page. So I might like lock a save button down here in the bottom right corner or something like that. But I'm a little bit curious what people think of the user experience. So if you want to give that sign up a try and give me some feedback on it, I would appreciate it. And so, yeah, so just, you know, kind of explain briefly what it's about. And if you want to unsubscribe, you just uncheck the checkbox and hit save, and it'll unsubscribe you from that. If you decide later you want to subscribe, you can click on it again. It'll resubscribe you and start it over again, you know, stuff like that. And then as it drains out the messages, it'll automatically unsubscribe you from that newsletter. And once the system automatically unsubscribes you from whichever the last newsletter is, it also erases your email address from the database as well. So it'll remember the email address and this unique ID for your email address. But once it unsubscribes you, if you resubscribe even with the same email address, it's going to give you a different unique ID. And so that ID would change every time you come in and like fully resubscribe. But I wanted to make it a little bit easier that when you got a message down at the very bottom, you could manage your subscription and come back to this page and be able to say like, hey, I want to change how frequently I get this particular newsletter. I want it more often, or I want it less often, I'm going to be going on vacation for a while, so I want to change the date over here, and I want everything to start back again on July 30th or something like that. And it'll put a pause on it. When you hit save here, it's going to wait until the 30th to send you the next newsletter. So I wanted to have some flexibility there for you as a subscriber. So I'm a little bit curious what folks think of the user experience. Is it too complicated? Could I make it easier? Are the bullet point lists here too long? So I'm happy to take any kind of feedback on this page. Anything you think that could improve it, I would really appreciate. But you need to start with the beta equals yes flag up here in order to get to this. If you don't use the beta flag, it's just going to go to the regular subscription, and you're going to get the one email newsletter, which is just the 42 messages. Now the beta one, I'm not actually sending those newsletters yet. So if you sign up, you're just helping me test the user experience, but I'm not actually going to be sending the newsletters out because I'm still working on the formatting and writing the content, or finishing writing the content. I've got all the content written. I just have to go back and edit it and format it and look at grammar and things like that. For translatability and things like that. But if you've got comments or feedback on it, I would love to take any feedback on it. So please let me know. X90, good to see you in chat. I haven't seen you in a little bit either. So hope you're doing well.
Hello there.
HFW asks in chat, how much do you think recency of tech prep matters? For example, I felt like the concepts needed in Amazon's most recent 6-month list was not well covered by the typical topics. That's an interesting question. The recency of prep is more for how well can you recall this information once you get to an interview. That's really what the recency is going to help with. When it comes to, are the topics relevant, that's going to be a little bit subjective. That will change slightly over time, but not drastically. I think that a lot of the material that you're going to typically study for interviews is going to be kind of long-lasting material. So I'm a little curious what you think about, like, Amazon's most recent 6-month list was not well covered by the typical topics. Are you saying that the typical topics that people would tell you to prepare didn't prepare you well for Amazon? Is that what you're asking? I'm a little bit curious if you can give me a little more context on that. X90 just finished vacation, feeling relaxed. Very good, very good. Hope you had a great vacation. We thought about taking a trip. We took a big giant road trip last year, and we were out for a couple of weeks, and we got back like late June, and then I started a job like the first week of July, and then I started streaming a year ago Friday. So we just hit our 1 year as a streamer, and we debated doing another road trip this summer, but we haven't actually made any plans yet, and we got about a month before the kids go back to school, so we're trying to figure out, like, what do we do. So we got some fun activities planned at the end of the month. I don't know if we're going to get out for like another road trip or not. We might, I don't know, maybe just go up to the mountains or something for a weekend or something like that. We haven't been camping in forever. I'd love to go camping. So yeah, we'll have to figure some of that out, but yeah, vacation's always nice. It's nice to get away and unplug and stuff like that, and just go explore someplace new. And yeah, it's always fun to do that kind of thing. So HFW, so list of advanced topics not covered by blind 75 and so on. So things like advanced topics. So advanced topics for a company like Amazon, for example, they're going to want to hear a lot about like scalability, and like low level optimizations, memory use optimizations and things like that. Those are topics that are not typically covered. I don't even really cover them in my email newsletter either. I do cover some, but not very much. I do touch a little bit on like why these things are important. So I do talk about like, why do I ask a question about scalability? Why do I ask questions about security? Things like that. Because I think it is important that you could study some of that stuff. Some companies will ask about it, some of them won't. Some of it depends on your seniority level. If you are a very senior dev, then you're probably working in a lot of those realms anyway. And a lot of the preparation that you do for those interviews should really focus around, like, what do you typically do on a day-to-day basis? How does that make you a better developer? Why does that bring value to my company? Those are really going to be the themes around the questions that they ask on that sort of stuff. But yeah, just doing like the blind 75, leak code, and by the blind 75, they basically mean like they don't tell you what the pattern is. They just give you the problem. You have to try to figure everything out about it. The blind 75, I mean, it's just algorithms and data structures, and it's not really going to get into like, show me how you make this particular question scalable. Hey, bud, can you, if you're done with that blanket, can you bring it back here? That's my blanket, not the catch. So it's going to be like, regurgitate the depth first search, regurgitate, these heap algorithms and things like that. But it's not going to be like, hey, tell me why scalability is important. Tell me why resilience and, building backup systems and testing that those backup systems work and disaster recovery plans. Like, tell me why those things are important. There aren't many mailing lists out there that are going to cover that as preparation material. I think because once you reach a certain level in your career, those are questions that are just going to come up because you're going to be dealing with that stuff all the time. Does that need to be on a list of like, hey, make sure that you talk about these things? I mean, you could. I found one really good resource. Let me see if I've got it open in an editor. Let me go find this real quick. I think I've shared this link before, but let me go pull it up here again. Bear with me for a sec while I go find it. And it's a really good resource that I found on system design. There's actually a couple of them. I'll post both of the links in here, and I'll add them to the video description below when I get into when I get this up on YouTube. these two links I have found to be quite good as far as like system design go. So you can go check out these links if you want. One of them's GitHub, and it's enormous, and it's someone from Facebook put it together. And I think that covers a lot of those more advanced topics, like how would you talk about caching? How would you talk about, this component or that component of system design? I think the system design interviews are going to prepare you more for those advanced questions. And it's not going to be like, show me how you code a caching system, but it's going to be like, why do we use caching? How do you set it up? How do you use it effectively? How do you know when to invalidate what's in the cache? Things like that. Those are going to come up more as system design types of interviews, and not so much as the immediate like developer interview, where you're sitting down. It's like, all right, code this thing up for me and tell me why you would build caching into it or something like that. That's not, those are going to be two different types of interviews, I think. Juggling Biohouses, good to see you as well. Oh, I took all the signs down because I had to do some recording for work and I forgot to put them back up. Sorry for that. I will go hang them back up here in a moment. You had to have a good understanding of combinations and permutations to solve with an ON formula. Almost no depth for search, not much sliding window, etc. Yeah. So HFW was talking about like how do you prepare for like more advanced types of interviews, specifically like Amazon, like a lot of math knowledge topics embedded in substrings and things like that. Those are going to get into like the medium and hard, especially on the hard level. But it also depends a lot on the level of role that you're applying to as well. The questions are going to get harder and harder as you go. Low Freezy, good to see you in chat as well. First time chat from Maybe Awake. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks for joining us today. Given all the layoffs and economic situation, do you think it's a good time right now for me to change jobs as a software engineer? That's a really good question. I was thinking about this last night actually, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, what's going to happen with the economy and the economics of what's going on because there are layoffs and things like that." It's going to impact some of the consulting work I do on the side, and so that maybe means like, am I going to be able to like match all the money on the tech fundraiser? I mean, I'm gonna match it anyway, but like, my consulting work is going to start to dry up a little bit. It's definitely going to impact entry-level devs trying to get into the industry, because companies who are laying people off are going to want to hire more senior level devs, just to avoid having a lot of entry level talent where they're not getting stuff done. At the same time, I think we're going to start seeing salaries kind of normalize again. I think we'll start seeing salaries come back to like a more like usual kind of range instead of being really elevated the way they have been the last year or two. Is it a good time to change your job? I think the biggest thing that's going to impact you, if you stay in your current job with the economy the way that it is with inflation, are you getting a raise? Like, are you getting a cost of living adjustment like every 6 months to keep up with inflation? Some companies are like, well, why do we have to keep up with inflation? We're already paying you tech salary, which is way beyond like normal salaries, for other kinds of jobs. So some companies are going to be opposed to giving those raises, but at the same time, if you're not getting that 5, 6, 8, 9% raise, you're making less money, like you're taking home less money. Now, if you're making like 200K, 300K, 400K a year, do you really need that extra like couple of bucks to buy that loaf of bread? It's like you're probably affording that loaf of bread just fine. So do you have to get that raise? At the same time, it's the principle of it. Companies need to take care of their staff. Is it a good time to change your job? It could be a little risky. I think you have to be careful where you go, and you have to really examine the company that you're going to, because if you change your job, think about this. If you change your job and that company has a layoff, you're probably one of the first people out the door. You might be hired in at a slightly lower salary, in which case they might keep you because you're cheaper than the people that have been there a long time that are costing them more from a salary point of view. So some companies will actually lay off people that have been there for years and years and years just to give them a little bit of relief on paying salary. Salary is like a huge expense to companies, and they may keep the cheaper people or people that are less expensive as far as payroll goes. Is it a good time to change your job though? I mean, that's going to be a question that you're going to have to answer as far as like what you want to be doing, and is there a reason that you want to leave? Like if you just want to change your job for the sake of changing your job, I think that's where it can look a little risky from a long term career perspective. It's like, well, why did you change your job? Like if you're like, oh, I just wanted to do something different, or it's like, oh, because of economy, I thought it'd be a good time to change. It's like, well, I would like as a hiring manager, if I ask why did you change your job and you say, oh, I wanted to learn this other thing, I wanted to take my career in another direction, that tells me that you're being proactive about what you want to do with your career versus like, I was kind of bored and I just wanted to do something different. It's like, okay, you couldn't have found something different to do at your current job. Like that start not like a huge flag, but it starts to raise concern for us about how are you really evaluating like what you're doing in your career and where you want to take your career and things like that. So it can have a bit of an impact in that regard. So I think you do need to be a little bit careful about why you want to change your job. Is it a good time? I mean, I think it's still a good time for us as employees, as far as like the power we have to sort of command a better salary than we have in the past. But I think there are a lot of layoffs happening right now. Between April, May, and June, we've seen a lot of companies do layoffs. We've seen a lot of companies, like even big companies like Meta, have hiring freezes, which is going to impact other things too. That I think you need to be careful. You need to be wise about why you're making the change. If you're making the change because you want to take your career in another direction, or you want to kind of take a step up in responsibility, and there is no opportunity for that at your current job, then that's fine. As long as you have a good story to tell, I think it's going to be fine. But if you're just kind of like, yeah, I just wanted another job because I wanted more money, you're going to have a good story to tell about why that other company is important to you and why what they do is important to you and so on, in order to convince them to hire you. But later on, you're also going to have to be able to tell a story about how that helped the trajectory of your career with how you want to take your career. So it all comes down to that storytelling and providing that value and things like that. So I would say don't be reckless about it. I think in the economy today, you do need to be careful about where you go and make sure that that company is going to be stable, that they're not going to have layoffs. One of the, like, when I did my job hunt back in December and January, I had a whole bunch of offers, and I basically boiled it down to two places. There was one where the salary was like really elevated and it was a director level role, and I was going to be doing more people management and less hands-on work, or my position at Postman, which I love, which paid less money, but it's really hands-on and I really, really enjoy the work. And for me, I wanted the more hands-on kind of work. Well, it turns out if I'd gone with that other company, they laid off that whole team in May or June. Like the whole team got laid off. So I would have been back on the job hunt. It was like April or May. Like I wouldn't have been there very long, and I would have been on the job hunt all over again. And then it's like, well, now do I put a job on my resume that I was only there for 3 months? It's like, well, the story to tell is I got laid off. I took a chance. Company didn't work out. I got laid off. And now I'm back on the job hunt. That's not your fault. So it's not going to be a big deal to other companies if you get laid off. But if you quit your job just because you're bored and you want to go try something new, that can raise a flag for like, are you just jumping around so that you get more money? That's going to be a concern for us. If we hire you, are you going to leave in another 6 months because someone else offers you even more money? Companies can't always afford like, well, let's just throw tons of money around. That's why they have layoffs. Let's be honest. When you start paying people ridiculous salaries and then they're like, oh wait, we hired all these people, we're paying like millions and millions and millions of dollars in salaries. That's not sustainable. We're like bleeding cash. They have to stop somewhere. And that's why layoffs happen. So I think you have to be careful about where you go. And if you make that change too frequently to try to get that raise, like, yeah, it's great for your bank account, but at some point it's going to impact your career too. So I think you do need to be careful about it. And thanks for the follows as well. Appreciate the new follow, maybe awake. King 440, good to see you as well. Thanks for dropping by in chat. Feel like I missed a couple of things in chat here. I want to go back and take a look at it. Father Funk 3D resubscribed. Appreciate the resubscribe. Thank you so much. Thanks for dropping by. So someone was asking, like, how many of us actually do math during work? It does depend on the type of work that you're doing. Will also said in chat that having layoffs and so on might impact older guys like me. I cost too much, perceived as not up to date. Yep, ageism is a thing, and they worry that you're going to expect too much salary. I face that myself. I'm only 48, but I experience a lot of that myself. I see Black Deep said in chat, companies probably ask a lot of silly, irrelevant questions. I do a decent bit of math, but I'm not in the software group and certainly wasn't asked about it when I interviewed. How about getting into tech? Is it a bad time to jump in? Jen Anemone? Can I call you Jen? Is it okay if I call you Jen? Getting into tech, is it a bad time to jump in? I don't think it's a bad time to jump in, but I think it's going to be a little bit harder with the economy right now to find that. Let me qualify this. It's going to be harder than usual to get the entry-level job. There are going to be companies who want to take advantage of new people in tech and that are going to come in at lower salaries. Companies still have work that they need to get done. They want to pay as little as possible for salaries to have people come in and do that job. But they're still going to want people with some amount of experience. If they can't find if they can't find experienced people to hire, they will start hiring entry-level devs, like people with less experience. They will gradually lower their expectation on who they should hire, but it takes them time to be like, all right, we've had this job post open for months and like nobody wants the job because we're not paying enough and we can't afford to pay more, so let's lower the qualifications to actually get people in the door. And that's where like lower skill level positions start to open up. But you have to be careful joining those companies as well, because if they've had other layoffs or if other senior devs have left because they're not paying enough, you have to question, am I going to get enough mentorship? Am I going to get enough learning? Am I going to be sort of taken care of if I come to this job? You have to be careful about that too. I think it's always a good time to get into tech, honestly. The tech industry historically has done very well. We've had a couple of dips like 2001, 2008, 2009 kind of times. We're in another one right now. It's not a big deal. We'll weather through it and then we're going to come out bigger and better on the other side. So I think any sort of transition into tech, I think is going to be fine. It will take some time to learn, and it takes time to learn effectively, and it takes time to practice those skills and be able to show a company the value that you bring as a new person on the team. But it is absolutely possible to get a job in tech. Even if you're brand new and you just graduated, you can still find a job relatively quickly if you can really show that value to the company. And that's what I talk a lot about on the channel here, is how do you show that value to the company? Jen an enemy is right. I always get that mixed up from Finding Nemo. Fool was saying in chat, I do a fair bit of math in my hobby. At work, I've done no math for years. I've done very little like actual math in my engineering, in my job as a programmer. It just doesn't come up very much. I mean, it occasionally comes up. I remember feeling really excited 4 or 5 years ago. I got to use Pythagorean's theorem for like a practical reason. I forget what it was now, but I'm like, wait, that's the a squared plus b squared equals c squared thing. And I actually got to like code that up for the first time. It was fun. Sam E.G., good to see you in chat. Thanks for the first time chat as well. We give you some blinky lights and some sort of greeting audio. I don't have my earphones in to know what it's playing, so hopefully it's not obnoxious. How would you evaluate whether a company is safe to jump into in a down economy? That's a good question. I think a lot of it, you have to look at the age of the company, what they're doing, who they are serving as customers, what they do, and the longevity of that. So, for example, there's a lot of infrastructure building going on. There's a lot of push towards renewable energy. I think those kinds of companies are going to do well. Other companies are going to do well who have actual product that people want to use. We've been talking a lot about this at Postman, where I work right now, because a lot of companies don't want to have to go build something themselves if there's already an API that'll do it. So how do we tie all these APIs together? And we encourage people to use Postman to like go test out those APIs and do all the things. And so our business model is pretty solid because we're a tool that other companies are using to build APIs and test API integrations and all that kind of stuff. So I think if you can find the companies that are building APIs that other companies are already using, then that's a pretty good, stable sort of company. It's not guaranteed. Like, don't take this as like, market advice or anything like that. But I think that, companies who aren't trying to drum up like, hey, this is why you should use our business, we're the best. If they're brand new at something, it's going to be riskier for other companies. Like, they're not going to want to take the risk. At the same time, I think a lot of companies are like, should we build this, or should we build it ourselves, or should we, buy that service from someone else? And it's what we call build versus buy in the industry. And so a lot of companies are going to start evaluating, why are we paying, for this service? Could we build it ourselves? Versus, hey, we hired this whole team to build this thing out, but turns out there's this company over here that does the exact same thing, but they only charge like, we would pay them $1,000 a month instead of us paying 10 engineers $10,000 a month each. Why don't we just go like pay for that other service and we can, stop paying these other engineers, and then they get laid off. But the company saves money and they've got, some sort of integration that they need. That can also be a reason for layoffs and things like that. When companies realize that they're doing things that are redundant in the industry, and they're going to try to find ways of sort of using and repurposing what's already out in the industry. And those are the kinds of companies that are going to stick around, is the companies that are building those building blocks. I just did a talk recently on like, how do we get non-developers into the world? And I was talking about like building Lego sets, and how we as developers, if we can build the blocks and then teach people how to put these blocks together, then using like no code or low code, like visual programming tools, make it a lot easier for non-developers to help with that process. And I think that those kinds of companies are going to do extremely well, especially for companies that can't or don't want to afford really high developer salaries. They're going to be looking at how do we build these integrations with these visual tools. Go find those companies that are building those visual tools. I think they're going to do very well over the next couple of years. Security, I think, is going to be a really important thing. There was a lot of stuff in the news recently where they're saying a lot of security analysts are quitting their jobs because they're burning out. There are so many security attacks and so few people who are really well trained to detect and stop these security attacks and data breaches and things like that, that the people that are in the industry are burning out and they're leaving the industry, which leaves a gigantic hole. And so a lot of companies are going to be scrambling around security tooling and security automation and things like that. Go find those companies, go apply at those companies. There are a lot of good like startups who are trying to do like security scanning in CI/CD pipelines and so on. I interviewed at one of them. They had made me an offer back in January. It's a company here in Colorado called Stackhawk, and they do security scanning as part of your CI/CD, and they'll stop your deployment if it doesn't pass a security check. Things like that. Those kinds of companies, I think, are going to stick around because other companies realize, hey, that's important. We don't want to have to build it ourselves, or our security people all just quit. So we have to go buy a service that's going to do that for us. That's where you're going to find stability in those jobs. So can you get into tech? Absolutely. Are there jobs that are going to make it through the recession? Absolutely. That's how you find them, is you look at what our company is going to need, and you go apply for jobs with those companies. And then you're going to have the stability. When I first moved to the United States from Canada back in 2000, I applied for a whole bunch of jobs. One company wrote back and said, we'll fly you down from Canada. We'll put you in a hotel for a couple of weeks. Try the job. See if you like the job. And if you like it, then we'll hire you and you can move down. All the other companies the other companies that I applied to that responded when I was applying back in 2000 said, if you already lived here, we would hire you, but we can't pay to like do the visa and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, it's a NAFTA visa. You don't have to pay any sponsorship or anything like that. But by then they had already closed the conversation. But the company that I ended up going to, they were processing credit reports. Not a terribly glamorous job. But when the economy starts tanking, which happened in early 2001, I was actually thinking about leaving the job, leaving California, moving back to Canada by like Christmas or so of 2000. And over that Christmas break, I actually interviewed with a company back in Ottawa about like moving back to Ottawa and getting a job. And they're like, okay, well, we have to hire a senior level dev, and then we can bring you in as an intermediate level dev. And so I got put on hold. And then the whole dotcom bust happened in early 2001. If I had gotten that job, I would have been the first one out the door. Because again, that's the risk you take when you change a job during an economic downturn where you don't know if a company is stable enough. You don't know if you're going to keep that job. And so I'm like, well, I guess I'll just stay in this job. Like, you know, I hated my manager. It was like super, super toxic manager. Didn't like working with him. Friendly enough guy most of the time, but he was not a good manager. He was not a good technology manager to work under for a lot of reasons. And with that job, I'm like, I hate going to my job every day, but it was interesting work. I was getting the work done, and I was wearing a lot of hats. I was learning a ton. It was a startup, and I was doing a lot of things. And I'm like, I guess I'll stick it out at this job for a little while longer until I can find something else. Well, then the whole dot-com bust happened. Well, it turns out when you're at a company that processes credit reports and the economy takes a downturn, everybody suddenly wants to refinance their house. Or at the time, because companies were paying, you know, ridiculous salaries and also like paying out tons and tons of stock options, and they were trying to attract talent at the time with equity. And banks are like, oh, you're working for that startup? That startup's worth $1 gazillion with all this equity? Like, sure, we'll let you finance that house using this equity that's worthless on paper. It's like, here, I got your collection of equity right here in this box of Kleenex. You know, like that's how much your equity is actually worth. Until your company has an exit event of some kind. But banks back in 2001 weren't getting the concept, and that's why it was such a big crash, because people were backing all kinds of loans on worthless promises. Well, our company started going through the roof because everybody was refinancing their house and refinancing their cars and refinancing all kinds of debt, and so we were processing credit reports left, right, and center. And so our business took off, and it made us very busy. And that was fantastic for us. On the flip side, when you realize that your business is doing well because other people are being impacted on a personal level, didn't feel great. But I had job security. And so I think that's how you find those companies, is you have to look at the landscape of what's going on in the world. Who are the companies that are going to be helping in that kind of scenario? And can I move into those companies? I think the sooner you can make those determinations and make those moves, the easier it's going to be. So a couple of ideas there on how I think you can kind of weather the storm through some of that. Don't jump into a crypto company. Yeah, I'm a little wishy-washy on the whole crypto thing right now. I think that there's a lot of Web3 stuff going on, which is interesting, but the fact that it's all backed on cryptocurrencies, and a lot of those cryptocurrencies are starting to fail. Like I get the whole idea of like putting stuff on the blockchain and how it proves ownership and proves timeline and things like that, and because it's immutable and you can't change it. But it also means that once something's on the blockchain, you can't delete it. And so I think that a lot of like social platforms that are trying to move to blockchain is like decentralize your social network and put it on the blockchain. It's like, then you have no easy ability to delete something if you change your mind about posting it. But it does prove ownership over, like, yes, Ian really did author that first. You know, he posted it at such and such a time. But as far as like, you know, the whole Web3 thing, I think until a lot of those transaction fees drop to a reasonable / free kind of level, I think Web3 is not gonna take off very much. I think only the really rich people are gonna be in Web3, and you know, they're gonna get richer because people are paying their transaction fees to move things around, whatever. I've purposely stayed out of a lot of Web3 conversations partly because I don't understand it and I don't want to speak out of ignorance, and partly because I'm just not that interested in cryptocurrency, to be honest. I have been in the past. I dabbled in it for a little bit, and I'm like, meh, it's like this fake money. kind of thing. And there were a lot of economic promises about how it was going to help in third world countries and things like that. But there's a lot of bad use with cryptocurrency as well, and it's not as secure as people think. So I've purposely stayed out of it. To be honest, it's not really a topic that I'm equipped or very willing to speak on. Would you mind speaking a little bit on the path between going deeper as an individual contributor, like principal and staff level, versus people management, like directors and engineering management? It seems to me it's harder to progress as an IC. It seems like there are more opportunities for growth in people management. I think that there are always going to be fewer roles. So if you think about it like a pyramid, there's going to be lots of entry-level roles. There's going to be fewer intermediates, fewer seniors, fewer, principal staff kind of level roles. That's going to happen no matter what. But it's the same thing on the management side too. You've got lots of engineering managers, very few directors, only a couple of VPs, and only one CTO, and it's also a pyramid. So no matter how you progress, there's still going to be a limitation on how many people can actually be in that kind of role. And that's also why people tend to leave companies, is like, there are no more staff roles or principal level roles at this company. So the only way that I can go get that staff level role is to change companies and go over here instead. At the same time, when you start getting like really high into those levels for staff and principal engineers or the VP director on the management side of things, you kind of have to prove you can do the job before they'll even hire you at that job. And I've spoken about that on the stream in the past too. I think that there's less likelihood that they're going to look at you as a senior dev and go, oh yeah, we'll totally bring you on as a staff level engineer. Does that mean you need to misrepresent yourself and call yourself a staff engineer so that other people are like, oh, you've already done the job, cool, we'll interview you and we'll hire you at that role? No, I think some companies are willing to do that promotion at the same time, or you can say like, hey, I've done all this stuff as a senior level. I've also gone above and beyond. This is why I'm qualified for your staff engineer kind of role. And you really have to take a look at, sites like levels.fyi and career ladders and things like that. There are sites out there who do a pretty good job explaining how to get into those roles. But a lot of people feel that in engineering, like once you reach a certain level as a senior dev and you kind of go into the team lead kind of role, that, oh, my company's pushing me into the management track. That's not necessarily the case. As a team lead, it's actually equipping you more for the staff and principal level, where you're doing more conceptual work and leading the architecture and the design of kind of those components like we talked about. Like, we need to go build this block. Let me show everybody how I would go build this block. I'm going to build a little proof of concept, show everybody how I'm going to design this thing out. And then you're basically rallying other teams around you to say, we need to go build this thing. A lot of what drives that innovation at larger companies like FANG companies and so on is the rebuild and repurpose and reinvention of a lot of things. And this is why we see companies like Facebook coming out with a framework like React, is because they felt like we gotta keep our staff engineers busy somehow. Like, how do we keep folks busy for a long period of time? That's where a lot of invention comes from. But a lot of times that invention is just a reinvention of things that already exist. But as an engineer, it's like, well, we could go pull in that other library from that other company, but it would look better if we just built our own. So let's just go build our own. And now, now I've got job security because now I'm inventing this thing for the company and explaining why it's going to be great for us to have this as a company. I think that that's where a lot of like the staff and principal level things happen at big FANG companies. That's my perception of it. Whether that's accurate or not, that's a lot of how I see things play out. At smaller companies though, you can, and by small, I mean, I don't just mean like small startups and things like that. I mean that companies that aren't like 50,000 engineers. I think you can still get into those staff and principal level roles just by promoting through the team lead and then saying, okay, how do I take this team lead experience and level that up to the next step? How do I now build other team leads to do what I've done as a team lead? And so that's kind of the progression no matter where you are. When you're an entry-level role, you don't really have anybody to mentor. When you're an intermediate level, you're mentoring the entry-level folks to figure out, how do I become an intermediate level developer? And then as an intermediate developer, you get mentored by the senior developers. And then eventually you're like, okay, well, now I can do that role. And then your job is to bring the intermediates up to where you are. And so you're, as you level up, you're bringing up other people behind you. And then as you level up, you bring up other people behind you. That's the progression, no matter which track you go down, whether you stay in the contributor or you go into management, you're doing the same thing. As a manager, you teach other people about, hey, if you want to get into management, these are the kinds of things you need to understand, and how to keep people motivated, and how to talk to them about their career growth and things like that for the people management side. And then you get mentored by your director, and then eventually you become a director. And now as a director, you're teaching other managers how to become directors. And then as a director, you promote to VP, and you teach other directors how to become a VP, and so on. But at some point, you hit a ceiling. As a director, the next place is like a C level, executive level kind of role. Are you ready for that? And do you want that at a big company? Do you want to go get it at a smaller company? That progression and that track is really up to you as well. But I think you don't have to feel pushed into one way or the other from a company. I think a lot of people are like, oh, we want you to lead a team. And the first instinct that we as engineers have is, oh, if I become a team lead, you're trying to make me a manager. And that's not the case. I think as a team lead, I think it's equipping you more for that staff principal level type of role, where now that I'm a team lead, I'm going to teach other senior devs how to be a team lead. And then as a team leader, I'm going to become staff or principal level. And then I'm going to teach the other team leads how to get to my level as well. And so it's constantly like, what am I learning and how am I teaching that to other people to get to where I am? That's how I see that progression kind of playing out. So hopefully that answers your question, maybe Awake. As far as like what that actually looks like, I mean, I've been like senior web architect. So the architect level was kind of like, at the time we didn't really have like staff and principal levels, but like architect was kind of the next step up from being just a developer or engineer at the company, where I had that role at the time. And a lot of what I was doing was exactly that. It's like, okay, how are we going to plan out the next stage of how we want to build these things out? How are we going to architect this from a system level? What kinds of components are we going to need? Let me go figure out, okay, this team's going to go build that part. This team's going to go build that part. Here's how they're going to communicate together. And that's really where you get to as that staff or principal level engineer, is really understanding what are the components, how are they communicating, are they going to communicate well, how do we build in like resiliency and backups and failure plans and all that kind of stuff. How do we plan for all those contingencies as we're building out the system? And then from there, now you get people to actually go build those components, make sure they're doing them according to your vision. And so it's a lot of selling that vision and really promoting that vision and getting people on board with this is where we're going. But it's kind of that same way, like starting at that senior level as well, because as a senior dev, you're going to kind of help the juniors and the intermediates around like, okay, if you don't understand why we're doing it this way, let me share that vision and let me give you, like, from what I've heard, as that vision kind of trickles down, here's what I'm hearing about that vision. Here's why it's important to the company that we do it this way or that way. And really getting into the why, and not so much the how, but like, this is why we need to build this thing. The how is always going to be up to the team that's actually doing the implementation. I think that they're always going to have, or they should always have, the flexibility to build it however they think is best. But they have to build it within the scope of the vision of what the architect and staff and the principal level folks have directed them to do. So let me know if that answers that question, or if you want me to go into any other detail, but that's my take on it. Just going to hydrate here for a minute. Actually, I'm going to go hang up those signs again. I'll be right back. All right, there we go. So for anybody who pays for a subscription to the channel, I will 3D print a logo up there. So when you subscribe, just send me a whisper on what kind of logo you want. I'm drastically overdue to print a number of logos for folks. I'm going to get to that this afternoon. So yeah, any sort of silhouette, any sort of work-friendly, family-friendly kind of design. If you are a subscriber, I will absolutely 3D print something for you and hang it up here on the lights. So we got juggling biohazards up here with somebody actually juggling biohazards. This is Melly Ruru. Of course, we got Father Funk, who just resubscribed, and then Ethan's dad Makes. For Ethan Makes has a fantastic YouTube channel, but they're also here on Twitch as well. So if you are a subscriber, and I've got a number of subscribers, I've reached out to several of you saying like, send me your logo. I do have like 2 or 3 logos that were sent over that I need to print. But if you've got ideas on what you would like as you subscribe, all that subscription money is going to my diversity and tech fundraiser. And this is going to be like an ongoing thing kind of from now on. So I'm not always going to have this like showing up here. I may do it periodically, but it is something that, once we get into like the giveaways and the big push in October, you'll see this a lot more, but I'll probably shut it off for a couple of months and just, as I continue to accumulate money as a streamer, all that money goes into a pot and then I match all that money in the pot. So you can go check out this web page over here. It's my financial transparency page. And basically I'm outlining like, here's how much money I make as a streamer. And I'm going to go match all of that. And here's who it's going to. And so there's links on there for the money that we just gave away in the end of June, where we raised money basically since last July, basically since I started streaming a year ago. I kept track of all that money, all the private resume reviews, which I typically charge $50 a shot. I took all that money and basically put it all in a pot. I matched all that money and we gave away $3,500 to a group in San Francisco. I haven't decided yet who we're going to donate the money from July through December. But the reason I'm only doing 6 months for this block is because my employer will match $1,500 per calendar year. And so I want to start that fundraiser over in January. So next year, whoever gets that money gets all the money that we raise as a community over the course of the year, plus the $1,500 that my employer will match. And what I'm thinking is for 2023 is we'll probably do like a quarterly giveaway of some kind, where we'll do like maybe not a month long kind of thing, but like a couple of weeks every quarter of like, hey, we're going to put a big push on like subs or donations or something like that, just to fill up this pot of money, just to help people out in diversity. So that's what that's all about. If you got other questions about it, you can go read up about it on the page, and I'm always happy to take feedback and questions and stuff about that as well. Happy to have conversation about it, just for transparency reasons there. But yeah, there's a lot of content over on the website that you can go read for free. The mailing list, like I mentioned, that's taking shape. I'm hoping to launch that. I hate putting a due date on it because then I feel a lot of pressure on, I got to get it done by the end of July. I'm hoping it'll be ready by, early Q4. I'm going to aim for the end of Q3 to have the newsletters finished up and start emailing out the beta versions and so on. Neil Owl, good to see you. Thanks for the follow. Give you some blinky lights and some hellos. Hey! I also changed the lighting controls as well. So the LED strip up on the ceiling is now controllable over a web API. And it's also made by Govey, who makes this green one down here in the bottom. And so if you do !Govey, you'll actually see some information on some different things that you can set here. And also if you redeem some channel points to change the nano leaf, sometimes the Govey lights will change with them. So if you set the nano leaf to Boba Fett, for example, it'll also change the Govey lights. So there are a few of them in there. The Batman, I think, is another one where I make them set both to like a burgundy color, while this one is doing burgundy and black and stuff like that. Biting Bits, thanks for the follow as well. Appreciate that. Welcome aboard. It's good to have everybody here. So yeah, if you've got questions about tech interview prep, career advancement, anything like that, happy to share my perspectives. I've been in the industry for 26 years. I've been an engineering manager. I've been a director a couple of times. Right now I do developer relations because I've put a big focus on my career around the idea of education and just sharing knowledge with other people. And so I'm happy to share that knowledge here. So my whole catchphrase for the channel is share what we know and we all win. So I'm a big fan of having other people in chat, sharing their perspectives as well. I'm going to be having some guests on the stream to help share their perspectives. So this Thursday, we've got Tiff Bites. If you follow Tiffany here on Twitch, she's a variety streamer, but she's also an engineering manager. She's going to be on the stream this Thursday. We're going to do a whole bunch of resume reviews. We could always use more resumes. So if you want to send over a resume, it doesn't have to be like super polished or anything like that. We're just going to quickly take a look at them and say, this is how we think these things could improve. And so I think we're going to go through at least half a dozen on Thursday. So if you want to send over your resume for a free resume review, please send it over here. Don't worry about the private resume review thing unless you want a private resume review. What I do for those is I record like a half hour, 45-minute or so video on what I would improve about your resume, and sometimes I'll actually pull that into Google Drive and like show you how I'm actually going to make that edit, and then I share that document with you. And all that $50 goes into this pot, and then I also match that $50, so I'm not keeping any of that money. But yeah, Tiffany and I are going to be doing a bunch of resume reviews on Thursday and just hear her perspectives on like engineering management and career advancement and stuff as well. Sunday, we've got, who do we have on Sunday? On Sunday, we have Sakshi, who's a product manager at Google, is going to be on the stream next Sunday. And then next Thursday, or this coming Thursday? No, this Thursday is Tiffany. The following Thursday, I'm not streaming. The 31st, we're going to have Laura Langdon, who was in data science and transitioned into technical writing. Going to have her on the stream. And then we've got Matthew Glazar, who goes by Strager here on Twitch. He's going to be on the stream on the 4th, and Mike Elsmore, who is also in DevRel and streams on Twitch on the 14th. We've got technical writers. We've got people from Stripe, Coursera, Netflix, Microsoft. We got people from all over the world. We got tons of people from India, from Europe, from all over America. One person's like going back and forth between like Dubai and Vietnam that wants to be on the stream just to share their ideas and perspectives. And so you can go check out this link over on the website. You can click on, just go to Tech Interview Guide and click on live streaming on the menu bar, and you'll see the schedule of when people are coming on. There's a whole bunch of guests on here that I'm still trying to coordinate, like what day they're actually going to come on the stream. But I'm booking into August right now, and I've got a lot of people lined up who have expressed interest. And so now it's just a question of when can we get them on the stream, because I want to hear a lot of perspectives. I think it's important whenever you're hearing career advancement and career preparation advice, or even resume advice, that you listen to more than one person. You can't just listen to my advice. If you make a resume how I tell you to make a resume, that's great. If I'm hiring for a role and you know that I'm the hiring manager, I'm going to love your resume. But how I tell you to make a resume, other people might not agree, and that's okay too. I think as you hear more perspectives, you'll kind of form your own about, all right, this is how I want to make my resume. So yeah, I think that there are some things that we can learn from one another, and so that's why I want to have guests on the stream as well. So it's not just my face all the time. So a lot of folks coming in for the rest of July and into August. And I've got people that'll probably get us all the way through September, October, and I'm going to keep that list going all the time. So there's not going to be a guest on every single stream here, but probably several times a month, we're going to have at least one guest on the stream. I do occasionally have like multiple guests where we'll all chat about some kind of topic as well. I've had panels of like 4 or 5 people where we'll talk about like, why don't companies hire more junior devs? Or what is developer relations and developer advocacy? Like, why do I care? Or how do I get into that kind of role? So lots of opportunity there to share that knowledge and learn from different kinds of folks in those industries and so on. So yeah, keep dropping by. I appreciate the follows. Also, I'm getting more and more followers on the YouTube channel as well. So if you are watching this on Twitch, I would appreciate if you can go over to YouTube and subscribe over there. It's all free. It's all content free. I don't do any advertising or monetization over there right now. If I do monetization, then all that ad money is going into this bucket as well. But right now I don't have enough subscribers to even monetize any of that. All right, really, dude? Can you move me to somewhere else, please? It's great. Nerds. You are what you eat.
Cheese and you are not a cheese, and that's not true.
Unless you eat cheese, then you are not cheese. Sure. Appreciate all that. Thank you. So yeah, you can do bang help over here as well, and you'll see all the different commands that my chatbot will support. I'm not doing the 3D dragons right now, so I do need to change that message. But I was doing 3D dragons. I actually have one last one that I needed to mail it to somebody who sent in a donation. But Jero King, thanks for the follow as well. Appreciate that. Hello, welcome in. Hope you're all having a great weekend so far. We're just kind of chilling and hanging out and just talking about like career advancement and so on. If you've got questions about working in the industry, is it a good time to get in the industry or not? What should I go learn? Happy to take questions as well. If you'd like to ask something anonymously, you can also send a whisper over to my bot and it'll show up in chat as an anonymous question. So I'm always happy to let people feel comfortable with how they want to ask a question. You can also reach out to me on social platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter and so on. I try to use the same username as I do here on Twitch. And you can go find me on those platforms and you can send me messages there if you want to ask me a question. I'll answer your question wherever you ask. And if you do ask anonymously, I may bring it over here to the stream at some point and just say, hey, by the way, I was asked this anonymous question, but I'm not ever going to attach your name to it. Like, oh, you should hear this question that Juggling Biohazards asked me the other day. I'm not going to bring your name into the conversation unless you explicitly say, like, hey, it's okay if you share my name, but I generally won't share your name because I want people to feel safe about asking questions. Some people just, they're not sure how to ask a question or so on. So as you reach out and ask questions, I will answer them on whatever platform you reach out, but I may bring the question over here to a live stream at some point just to share that knowledge with other people. So let's see, what else is going on? What else did I do on the website lately? I added a whole page on the website of like speaking events and other contributions that I've made and, YouTube channels and so on that I've been on. You can go check that out. Again, if you want to check out the daily email series, right now it's a 6-week series where you get an email every day. But I'm in the process right now of splitting that into 4 different newsletters. So if you come up here and you add a query parameter just called beta, and I think it doesn't even matter what you set it to, it's just looking for the flag. No, it does need to be beta equals true or beta equals yes. Then this is basically going to be like a new automated email system that I'm trying out. And right now I'm just looking for feedback on the user experience of how's the sign up. So you'll enter in your email, it'll send you an email to confirm. And when you click on that, it's going to bring you back to a page where you then actually sign up for the different newsletters. So when you load up that page, it basically dynamically loads everything in here for you with your email address and then lets you select or unselect which newsletters you want to receive. And then there's a save button down at the bottom. And what I was saying earlier on the stream is I'll probably lock that save button down here in the bottom right corner. So as you're scrolling around, you'll always have access to that save button. You don't have to come down to the very bottom every time. But with the new mailing list software that I'm writing, you're going to be able to control how frequently you want to get those messages. So if you want one every day, if you want one every like 2 days, 3 days, I'll let you go up to a week. But yeah, I'm really looking for like user experience feedback on how easy is this to use? Does it make sense? Is it complicated? Is it too wordy? So I'm happy to take feedback on any of that anytime from anyone. So feel free to drop me a message on any kind of platform. Just let me know what you think. If you do subscribe, you can reply to any of the emails and it'll come to my inbox as well. So even the first email you get when you sign up, you can always come in and say like, hey, this is what I liked or this part could be improved. The other thing that I wanted to build in here was what day you start getting the messages or what day you get the next message. So I do need to change this of like, when would you like to get the next message in the series? Because I haven't actually started sending them yet. And but when you click on the calendar icon here, you don't see it on the browser over here in OBS, but it does bring up a little calendar pop-up that says like, it's a little date picker of, oh, I'm going on vacation till the 30th, so let me go change this to the 30th because I don't want to get any more of these messages until I get back from vacation or something like that. You can basically put it on pause for a little bit. So I'm trying to think of like little things like that to give you as a subscriber a little more control over a subscription like that. So really curious about feedback on any of that kind of stuff. Illustrator, thanks for the follow as well. Good to have you on board. Cool. So we've had a lot of new followers today, so I'm a little bit curious like how y'all found me, how y'all heard about the channel, things like that. I'm always curious about folks that drop by. And feel free to ask any kinds of questions that you like. So feel free to drop comments, questions in chat kind of as we go. And I'm happy to share any of my experience as a developer, as a manager, as a director. Right now I'm in developer relations. I work a lot in developer education and things like that. I work for a company called Postman. If you've used Postman, I work over there as a developer advocate, and happy to share any of my experiences with any of that. Lots of channel point redemptions if you want to do some fun stuff. There's like silly questions and things like that. Milo24, appreciate the follow as well. Let's just give everybody like a huge like cheer and hello and so on. We'll just give everybody a collective like hello there or something. But yeah, thanks for dropping by.
Hello there.
Hope you're all doing well. Awesome. Cool. So what else is going on with everybody? What else is going on this weekend? Hooray, Twitch works again. Are you having problems with Twitch? I think I saw something earlier that you couldn't load the video or something like that. That the video locked up on you, fool. But hopefully it's working out okay. So yeah, we've also got a Discord community if you wanna join over there. I did add a couple of more channels. Some folks were asking if we could add some other channels in here. So I've got a whole channel on LeetCode, and I added a channel on projects. The idea with the LeetCode one is some people were asking like, what if we need help with LeetCode, or are there places where we could just discuss like different sorts of strategies for different kinds of LeetCode problems? So I added a LeetCode channel, and then there's also a projects channel as well. Some folks were asking about like, I need some help working on a project, or is anybody available to like give me some ideas about a project? Like what kinds of projects should I build to attract a particular kind of company? Things like that. So I've also got a whole channel just on company research. If you ever want help researching a company and say, hey, I'm thinking about applying for a job with this company, can someone help me out and figure out like, is this a good company? Someone asked in chat earlier today, like, how do we find companies that are going to be stable when there's an economic downturn? If you've got companies that you're curious about, drop them in that channel. Feel free to drop by and put stuff in that channel. I'll help you out. As I have free time, I'm happy to dive in here and like help people out with, like who is this company? How big are they? How long have they been around? How stable do they look? What do they do? All that kind of stuff. So I'm happy to help out on any of those kinds of things. You just gotta let me know that you want the help. So happy to address any of that kind of as we go. But yeah, if you got other questions, feel free to drop them in. We've been going for an hour and a half. It was kind of the target of where I wanted to go, but we've had some good conversation going, so I don't want to hop offline just yet. But if there are other questions, I'll keep streaming for a little bit. And yeah, let me know if you've got other questions about like resumes, cover letters, interviewing, preparation, any of that kind of stuff. I'm happy to help people out kind of as we go.
That's the idea of getting something for free.
Oops. Wrong button. Cool deal. Well, y'all got real quiet all of a sudden. Had a whole bunch of follows and then everybody went real quiet. So hopefully you're all doing good. Let's see. Do we have any more questions we want to take on today? So basically all the anonymous questions that I get asked on different platforms and different channels, I eventually try to filter them all into the Discord community in a channel called Anonymous Questions, and I'm starting to run out of questions in there, so I need to go like fill that back up again. I usually put in like 10 or 20 questions at a time, and then if there's a quiet spot in a stream like this, I'll go grab one of those questions. But cool. I think cool. I'm gonna set up a raid and we'll take off for the day. Appreciate everybody dropping by. We're gonna go raid over to Loyal Moses. He's showing off a 3D printer over there that Focus has put up on Kickstarter. So we're gonna go raid over to his channel and say hi to everybody. Feel free to drop me questions anytime. And thanks for hanging out. We'll see you on Thursday. Come back and join us when Tiffany and I are going to do a whole bunch of resume reviews. And we'll catch you Thursday. And next Sunday, we've got a product manager from Google hanging out with us too. So we'll see you next Sunday as well. Have a good day, everyone.
And the Ellen Show community here is doing a favor in giving feedback.